Users can find themselves in a heap of trouble. This is especially true in Windows land. How can we make sure that people stay safe? Stay tuned to find out.
You're watching IT Pro TV.
Greetings everyone, and I'm glad you could make it back for more GSEC. We're talking about enforcing Windows security, and luckily I say we in a collective sense, but I'm not actually running the show. Daniel's going to tell us all about it, so I think we're going to be talking about group policies and a bunch of other stuff that doesn't apply anymore, right?
Nailed it.
Oh, yeah. I'm pretty good.
Smart. He's smart. I like how he thinks. I like the cut of your jib, sir.
Yeah, I try.
But yes, group policy, if you're thinking about Windows, group policy is where, or the de facto end-all be-all to how do we make sure that things are locked down in a uniformed way. One of the biggest ways you can do that is going to be through editing group policy, applying group policy. Now, the cool thing about group policy is that you can have multiple policies that are linked at different areas of your Active Directory so that you can apply policies in a certain way to a certain group. It's really actually quite powerful, quite flexible. There are tons of policies that you can use and affect. So really it just comes down to looking at your systems, looking at your environment, figuring out what applies and what doesn't apply, where that should apply and where it shouldn't apply, those kind of things. That's the hard lift when it comes to group policy in a lot of ways. The other part of it is just finding those policies, configuring them the way that you want them, and then set it and forget it like Ron Popeil. It's a lot of fun. So let's jump in and see how we work with group policies. If we haven't seen that before, I want to make sure you had that under your belt. So here I am. I'm just in my 2012 Beater server. I'm going to rename this server to Beater 2012 because I beat the mess out of it, and it always keeps coming back for more. But if you're running 2016 or whatever flavor of Windows Server, you'll find something similar. I have a tools area up here in my right-hand corner, as you can see, right next to manage. If I click that down and I start to scroll through this, oh, look at that. There's a group policy management tool. That is going to be the key to our success today. Oh, no, I hit IIS. That's not what I want. Stinking zoom out. Tool, group policy management. There we go. All right, so now you can see the standard area for managing group policy. And this allows us to take a look at what's going on and actually start kind of fiddling with stuff. This is going to be, you'll notice that the panes are kind of divvied up between the left side and the right side. Here I've created a test OU. I've done that in Active Directory users and computers, and it just reflects that stuff here. So if you have your OU structure, that's what you're going to see right here, and then you can affect it. The first thing we see, though, is the default domain policy. This comes built in as you create an Active Directory domain. You're going to see this in this group policy management area. That default domain policy is always going to be there so that you can have a place to start, okay? From there, you can come over here and look at the default domain policy and kind of what's going on with it. Shows where it's linked, kind of gives you some details about it, like when it was created, last time modified, user version, computer version, lots of great information here. Settings as well, and this is going to generate a report. This is, if you install this, you will need IIS because IIS kind of generates all these pages for you. So don't be surprised when you see that. And I'm seeing the policies that I've applied at the top level, right? So this is affecting everything under the coolco.com, is that what I called it? Something like that, domain. So this is, you do have to be aware of how policy applies and things of that nature. But for what we're doing for intensive purposes today, I mean, that's a whole class. Take a Microsoft class. Go check out our Microsoft tracks if you need more in-depth understanding of how these things work down to the actual practical degree. You'll want to check that out. But for here, we just want to see that this is how this works. So you're seeing policies. Under that is a setting called Windows settings. Then there's security settings for Windows. And we see account settings, which are security settings, as well as password policy. And enforce password history, maximum age, minimum age. You've seen I've done a lot with passwords. And there are really good policies that you should probably apply. Maybe I don't want those to apply to a subset of users. I can create a OU called, harder password or easier passwords and create a policy that's less strict or more strict. Link it to that GPO or that organizational unit, and it would apply to that. Okay. So these are super powerful. You see, I'm getting lockout thresholds. I've set quite a few things up in my default policy because I want them all to apply. If I go over to test OU, I can see that right there, I have a test GPO that's linked there. Okay. And if I run that out, you can see it. And now, of course, I'm going to get this. Just, yeah, add. That's fine. Add. Thank you. Don't bother me anymore. But there you go. I have my own set of policies linked to that organizational unit. And it's a computer configuration that I've edited. Okay, so now we kind of understand what they do. How do we make this happen? I can create a new GPO. We'll just do this one again. I can link an existing GPO, so if I've already created one, I can link it there, or I can create a GPO in this domain and link it here. So I'll do that. We'll call it test2. And if you have a starter GPO that you want to use, you can hit that drop down. I don't have any, so there we go. From there, I'll have this thing, and it doesn't give me a lot of, it gives me some policy inheritance and delegations on who can manipulate this. But I think if we go, if we go over here to test2, right click and hit edit, that will bring up the policy editor. And this is where we can really affect change to this. So make those configurations to those group policies. Open this up. You just kind of fill this out. You'll notice we've got two main areas: computer configuration, user configuration. There's great policies under both of those. One thing I like to do is just get myself a curated list of, top 25 group policies that you should probably be setting. And that can be helpful with making sure that you're starting off on the right foot if you're just getting into this and you're trying to set some policies. At least you should know what they should be, not necessarily that you have to set them though. So under here, you just pick your policies. So if I wanted to do like a Windows setting for the computer, I can go to these security policy or security settings, go to something like account. That's where those passwords are. I also have account lockout policy there, Kerberos policy. If I click on Kerberos, I come over to my right pane. I can see things like enforce user logon restrictions. Do I want to do that? Do I not? Maybe there are other options inside of that. Maximum lifetime for a service ticket. So really controlling the ticket mechanisms for Kerberos and the security authentication mechanism therein. Maybe I need to lock it down a little harder. Maybe I need to, make them request tickets more often than not. Who knows? Lots of stuff you can do. And of course, anything that you find interesting or think that maybe that's something I want to do. So maybe I want to enforce user logon restrictions or maximum lifetime for a service ticket. So I can go in here. And this explain tab right here, oh man, that is money. It is a lot of words, but it really explains in great detail what's going on with all of these different policies. If I think that is the life for me, I can come over here and define this policy, and I can say this ticket expires in 600 minutes. That is not the default, by the way. I set that because I was playing around with golden ticket stuff using this box. So that's why it's at 600. But yeah, set it whatever you like. And so if you're having trouble with service tickets, maybe this is something that can help you out. Again, tons of stuff. There's no way we could go through all the policies, but find yourself a list of stuff that's common sense, things like password policies, logon policies as well. Am I going to allow people to plug devices in? Am I going to remove the ability to store files? Am I going to do any kind of file auditing? All that stuff is going to be right here in group policy. So it is always going to be the big lift when it comes to enforcing a standardized security platform throughout your Windows Active Directory environment. If you needed to do this in just a standalone box, you can use the local security policy editor. It very similar in look and feel, has a lot of the same kind of policies. It's just for the local box and not for an Active Directory at large. So there you go. Hopefully that helps you understand group policy a little bit. And the main takeaway is going to be that I'm going to use group policies to enforce Windows security across my board.
Well, group policy seems like the bee's knees, but you and I were talking about some other things that used to have it in Windows, like INF templates. Are those still around, or do we care about those, or just chuck them out and forget about them?
Yeah, a really good question is are they still around and do we chuck them? Like, what's up with these things? More commonly referred to as security templates. So if you see something about security templates, or if you see INF security templates or INF templates, this is something that has been helpful in the past, probably not as helpful now. Not that it can't still find its way around the world, but what they do is basically they came out in early versions of Windows Server, gave you the ability to create basically a group policy template and say, here's what I want security to look like, and then I can take that template and I can apply it to, and it's basically just a text file with a bunch of like values, and you bring it into the system. That's what INF file is. An info, basically. It's just informational. It's a text file, and it has all these values in it, and it's the application that looks at that file knows what to do with those symbols, basically. Even though it's all regular text, it'll know how to apply that to the group policy. Now that we live in a much more advanced group policy world, I can just export group policy and then import group policy itself. I don't necessarily need INF templates anymore, but they were really helpful with that. They allowed you to do things like configure account policies, local policies, restricted groups, system services, registry, and file systems, right? All stuff now we do in group policy, and now I can export group policies now. So but it's good for us to know. Maybe you're working in older systems and you still need to understand that those are there. It's a bit of a lift, I'm not gonna lie. When it comes to implementing this stuff, you're gonna find some stuff about how to do this out in the interwebs. So you're like, hey, cool, I want to play with security templates. Get ready to see a lot of Windows 2000 and Windows 2003. Okay, not that those systems don't still exist out there, they do. But that's what you're going to see for the most part. And if you do get into the upper echelons of, you start getting into the 2000 or 2012 server, 2016 server, and you want to apply this stuff, you dig your heels in, get ready for a fight, because it's a lot of work, it's a lot of setup to get all that stuff to do what it's supposed to do. Which is why they're not going to expect you to know how to. I can't imagine that they would. I would recommend reading one of those walkthroughs, though, because it will give you a really good idea of how that is done if you did need to do it. But it's really a lot of setup and a lot of stuff that you have to go through, a lot of hoops you got to jump to get this to work, and it's just a whole lot easier to work with group policies anymore. So that would be my recommendation. But if you see something about INF security templates or security templates, they are used to implement security as a template across systems. That's what they're meant to do, which they do. They can do, and you can use them. I just don't recommend it.
Tell you what, you really sold it, Daniel.
I know,
I'm gonna go dig into the deep webs of the interwebs.
You've got unless you're running a large environment that has older tech, or for some reason you find yourself in the need of a security template because group policy won't export for whatever reason, then yeah. I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't have its place. It's just like, if you can use group policy, that's what I'm saying. If you can use group policy, just use group policy.
I would also try to find another way other than an archaic format that is plain text-based that no other system uses, as far as I know.
It's called Linux.
Oh, well, there's that. Yeah. So but those are still used. So there. Now, Daniel, before we get out of here, are there any other tidbits, tips, and tricks for enforcing Windows security that we need to know, or is this a pretty good foundation?
Yeah, this is what they called out as far as the objectives for the exam. So we're just going to stay there. Anything else you'll pick up throughout. There are probably a couple other ways in which you can enforce some security throughout your system. Group policy is going to be the majority stakeholder in that game. So I hope you're at this stake in your game, you are familiar enough with group policy that everything I just showed you was like, oh yeah, I got that. If you're kind of, I've seen that before, maybe spend some time, spin up a VM, play around with it a little bit, see how to apply, edit, and play with it, see how it works. Do something easy like the password policy, and then try to change your password with something that doesn't fit that, and you'll see, oh, that's a great way to enforce this stuff. So group policy is going to be your main takeaway from here, and then when necessary, security templates.
All right, well, thank you so much, Daniel, and thank you for joining us, but we're going to go ahead and call this one done. Signing out for IT Pro TV, I've been your host, Justin Dennison.
And I'm Daniel Lowry.
And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for watching IT Pro TV.